Hello and welcome. Can a Muslim donate money without raising suspicion? It's a question many of the 7 million or so Muslims living in the USA are asking now as the holy month of Ramadan gets underway. It's a particularly auspicious time in the Islamic calendar and one where traditionally Muslims focus on charitable giving known as zakat, one of the 5 pillars of the religion. In the aftermath of 9/11 and as part of the so-called global war on terror, the US Treasury Department stepped up its efforts to stop the flow of money to groups that it considers to be terrorist. Unfortunately, with the blanket suspicion of anything Islamic following the attacks of 9/11, it meant that charities with any sort of connection to Muslims were scrutinized. Has it gone too far? Well, at least 6 Muslim charities in America have had their assets frozen over the past 8 years, and many Muslim Americans have been questioned for donating to those charities or other causes abroad. This has created a chilling effect where Muslim Americans are wary of donating to anything. President Barack Obama acknowledged the problem in his speech to the Muslim world in June in Cairo.
Freedom of religion is central to the ability of peoples to live together. We must always examine the ways in which we protect it. For instance, in the United States, rules on charitable giving have made it harder for Muslims to fulfill their religious obligation. That's why I'm committed to working with American Muslims to ensure that they can fulfill zakat.
So today we ask, is the crackdown on charities run by American Muslims a violation of their human rights, or is it justified that there's extra scrutiny of these organizations in the post-9/11 world? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room and take part, and we'll also take your phone calls on the show. Joining me today from New York is Jennifer Turner, a human rights researcher at the American Civil Liberties Union, who was the lead author of a report this past June on the dilemma facing Muslim charities in America. The report, Blocking Faith, Freezing Charity, argues that U.S. terrorism financing policies are seriously undermining American Muslims' constitutional liberties and violating their fundamental human rights to freedom of religion and freedom from discrimination. In Los Angeles, we have Dr. Leila Al-Mariati, the chairwoman of the US-based charity Kinder USA, whose primary focus at this time is on addressing the health and educational needs of Palestinian children living in the West Bank and Gaza. Dr. Al-Mariati served as a presidential appointee to the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom from 1999 to May 2001. We also have Raymond Ibrahim, the Associate Director of the Middle East Forum, a think tank based in Philadelphia, from where he joins us. Mr. Ibrahim is the editor of The Al-Qaeda Reader, a collection of texts and documents that trace the origin, history and evolution of the ideas of the leaders of Al-Qaeda. I welcome you all to the show. And Jennifer Turner, if I could start with you there in New York and ask, how serious is the crackdown on Islamic charities? I mean, looking at it, how widespread, how tough?
Well, the crackdown on Muslim charities has affected the 7 charities that have been closed by the Treasury Department, but the repercussions are much broader. In fact, in talking with Muslims across America, I found that there's a widespread impact on Muslims who feel that they can't give in charity, can't fulfill their obligation to give to their zakat because of this crackdown.
And from what you know, has there been historically anything similar to this? I mean, has any other organization, any other group or similar sort of range of organizations been targeted like this?
Well, historically, Irish charities have come under scrutiny for their donations, and Irish Americans have come under scrutiny. But since 9/11, Muslim charities have borne the brunt of the Treasury Department's scrutiny of American charities.
Well, Dr. Leila Al-Mariati, if I could get you into the conversation here from Los Angeles, welcome into the show as well. What impact is this targeting of charities having, do you think, on the desperately needed resources that some of these charities are seeking?
Well, I think that is the main question, is that the focus of these Muslim charities has been on the neediest people in places of conflict and disaster. And by closing them and cutting off the ability of American Muslims to donate, it really affects the ability of people to survive those kinds of situations. The one that we deal with, of course, is what's happening particularly in the Gaza Strip right now. And so I think this inhibits people from starting new charities, from taking on new projects, and makes people really doubt whether they should be giving at all. And I think it has had a huge impact. That really the bottom line is that not that it's had any impact on diminishing the financing of terrorism, because that hasn't been proven in the majority of cases, but rather it has had the effect on diminishing our ability as American Muslims to help the people we care about around the world.
And Dr. Al-Mariati, I guess, you know, since we're doing this at a time that's quite significant in the Muslim calendar, we're doing it during Ramadan when charity is high on the agenda. I guess the impact is even greater, or at least the concern is even greater right now.
It is greater, but I will say as a tribute to my fellow Muslim Americans that people really come forward to help the people that they care about, and that it's our job as charities and as other organizations to really reassure them that we are conducting the proper due diligence to make sure their money gets to where it needs to be, because our obligation is to our donors and to our beneficiaries, and that's the bottom line.
Raymond Ibrahim, let me bring you in here, and glad you could join us too. Considering the harm that it is doing to bona fide charities and to those in need, how do you regard this this sort of blanket targeting, or at least very widespread suspicion of charities, Islamic charities?
Well, first, I feel that, you know, both on a theoretical level and on a practical level, it has been proven over and over again that zakat or charity has been sent to aid and assist what is considered terrorism, both especially abroad. And so while I sympathize with the fact that Muslims do want to contribute zakat and to give it to the poor and needy, the conundrum is, how does one bypass, or how do we figure out that the money is not being in fact sent to terrorists? And so, and just to bring it right back to what I was saying, it's on a theoretical and a practical level. So by theoretical, what I mean by that is that it is well known that zakat can be given to X amount of recipients. Well, one of them, which is very well extremely codified, is the people who are engaged in fi sabilillah, or in the path of Allah, which according to Islamic law and all the jurists specifically means those who are engaged in jihad or in military activities. This, for example, is found in Quran 960, Surah Al-Tawbah, Ayat 60. And it's also in all the legal texts and the legal Islamic manuals. And in fact, in the Quran, when you read it, jihad or sabilillah, fighting on behalf of Allah, when you look at the primary verses, it is often that fighting with one's wealth, and in this case, we can look at zakat, is prioritized as opposed to fighting with one's self. So it comes down to that on a theoretical basis, it is well known that zakat can go and contribute to sabilillah, fighting on behalf of Allah, and jihad.
Okay.
And on the other hand now is in everyday real life, and as we've seen, it has been proven that this has been the case. For instance, what comes to my mind immediately are two instances as Al-Haramain Foundation, which I believe was also indicted for contributing to jihad, or contributing to those engaged in military operations, I believe, in Chechnya. And of course, the more famous anecdote would be the Holy Land Foundation, which it turned out lots of charity was going and funding Hamas, which is a recognized terrorist organization. So that's the problem. So
okay.
How does one bypass that and still see to it that Muslims can give charity to those who are needy?
Okay, I'll look at some of the issues you raised in just a moment. We have Lee on the line from Virginia. We try and get our viewers' questions in as much as possible here too. So Lee, thanks for joining us. What would you like to ask?
Thank you. I actually have a quick comment. Al-Jihad fi sabilillah does not really mean what the gentleman just explained. It actually means literally perseverance for the name or the cause of God. It does not literally mean fighting or picking up arms. My question really is, there is a Zionist influence behind the Treasury Department's effort to shut down all Muslim charities. Could there be something as simple of a solution as essentially starting new organizations that start up and shut down faster than the Treasury Department can actually identify them? And if that's the case, how can the general public find out about these, especially in today's, with the advent of the internet and et cetera, et cetera? Thank you.
Actually, Jennifer Turner, if I could put this to you, isn't one of the key things that basically, if people really want to target money to suspect groups, they could. I want to get to Raymond on this in a minute, but I want to ask you, surely motive, engaging and getting the right motives established, that people are giving money for positive reasons, would be a greater focus, a better focus for the government.
Well, sure. Well, one problem is that these laws were expanded under the Bush administration, and they currently give the Treasury Department virtually unchecked power to close charities. So currently under the law, the Treasury Department can close a charity without notice, without showing the evidence, without a hearing, without providing the charity an opportunity to respond. And in fact, after 7 charities have been closed by the government, independent government review by both the 9/11 Commission, other government agencies, and court review have shown that the evidence used to close these charities has often been deeply flawed, and even points to a lack of even evidence showing that these charities have supported terrorism. While the Treasury Department has closed 7 charities, only one has in fact been convicted of any material support for terrorism. Another problem is that the laws will punish support without any kind of regard for the intent behind the support. So if a donor is to give to a charity fully intending to support humanitarian aid, giving in good faith, and in opposition to any kind of violent aims of any group, that person could still be prosecuted, which raises serious concerns of what is our real goal. Our goal should be to make ourselves safer, and in fact these laws are failing to do that, and in fact counterproductive. We're finding that these policies are alienating American Muslims who are key allies in the war on terror, are undermining America's reputation overseas, especially in Muslim countries, and are also chilling legitimate humanitarian aid. And American goodwill is the best foreign policy we have in fighting extremism.
Well, before we take a break, let's quickly hear, we have Ahmed on the line from Somalia. Ahmed, what would you like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I was just wondering, has any Islamic groups like that, charity groups, ever been taken to court in the States, and are they actually proved?
Yes, Ahmed, I think it was discussed a little earlier that there were a couple of cases. Thank you for your contribution. We're going to take a short break here. As we pause, let me remind you, you can join the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see the debate taking place there right now. We'll be right back with more on this.